Let's go! Batter up! We're taking the afternoon off. It's a beautiful day for a ball game, today. The fans are out to get a ticket or two. From Walla Walla, Washington to Kalamazoo. It's a beautiful day for a home run, but even a triple's okay. We're gonna cheer and boo and raise a hullabaloo at the ball game today.
Hey everybody, it's me, Rick Acosta, the Dodger Card Collector, coming to you with another video. Today is Friday, April 14th, and I feel like I've been away a long time. I don't think I've done a video since maybe opening day. So just been busy with life things, and that's kind of one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today. We are, 2 weeks into the baseball season, loving that the games are sped up. I like this pitch, the timer. Games are ending in less than 2.5 hours, and that's great just because I was getting really tired of these 4-hour games and seeing 6 pitchers in one inning. It had just gotten out of control. So props to MLB for finally instituting the pitch clock. We have shorter games. NHL playoffs start tomorrow. Kings are going to play the Oilers. That'll be an interesting series. Also looking forward to the Tampa Bay series. I think that's going to be a great series. Boston Bruins set a record, most wins in the NHL season. And if you're from Boston, you're going to shoot me. I honestly don't see them winning the Stanley Cup. Just don't see it happening. I don't know who's going to be in it. I would think potentially the Edmonton Oilers, maybe the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's going to be interesting. If you're not into hockey, the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs are like no other playoffs in all sports. I wouldn't miss it for anything in the world. So take a look if you haven't. And if the game goes into overtime, stay awake, watch it, because you'll never see anything like it again. Totally awesome. Hobby-wise, it has been extremely slow, and I have been loving it. Life sometimes gets in the way in a good way. I have been focusing more on my house I told myself 2023 I was going to focus more on the house as opposed to my collection, because my attitude is a nice house makes my collection nicer. Or you could look at it another way. Having a nice collection makes your home nicer, but my home is very important to me, and I have been working in the living room. I bought some incredible new living room furniture, Amish furniture. I have a very old house by California standards. It's almost 100 years old. Some of you on the East Coast are probably going, I live in a 200-year-old house. But I live in about a 90-year-old house, and I bought some very nice Amish furniture for the living room. Still working on a few projects in there, but I've been with some new lamps coming in and new rugs and working on the front porch and restoring some furniture. I have just been focusing on the house the past few weeks. And I'll be honest with you, I've loved it. Just because, like I said, it makes card collecting more fun when I am able to devote some time finally to collecting. So I haven't been buying as much, which is probably one of the reasons I haven't been online as much. I have bought 3 cards in April. And I'm going to show one of them today. And the interesting thing is, and I'll bring this up before I show the card, is the person that sold. Let's say I'm totally backtracking here. I bought a card, and I also bought a ticket stub, which I'm going to feature. I'm not going to show it to you today because I'm going to feature it in a show later this summer regarding my very first baseball game at Dodger Stadium. We're approaching the 50-year anniversary of that. But in buying a ticket from this seller on eBay, he sent me this very long list, and it made me realize that there are people out there who collect some incredible stuff, and it would be interesting to see. This gentleman, and I don't remember his name, and I highly doubt he's one of my viewers, but he collects ticket stubs, and he is currently in the process of collecting a ticket stub from every game that Ken Griffey Jr. hit a home run in. So he sent me a pretty extensive list. I will honestly say it was maybe only 100, 100 games tops that he still needs tickets for. But it really got me to think. I go, wow, there's a gentleman out there. There's a person out there collecting ticket stubs from Ken Griffey's games. And I'm like, oh God, does that mean there's someone out there collecting tickets from Derek Jeter's 3,000 hits or Henry Aaron's home runs from the 1970s or games that Willie Mays played in? It just adds a totally different aspect to collecting. Luckily, something I would never do myself, but I do have to admit, when I get my catalogs, my Robert Edwards auction catalogs, my Mile High catalogs, which I received this week, or even Heritage, after the baseball cards, the next thing I really do enjoy looking at are the ticket stubs. And that's an expensive world out there, but there are some really nice ticket stubs. And I could see myself getting into that somewhere down the road, but not being crazy about it, but just, yeah, I would love a ticket from a Dodger game from Ebbets Field. And as I mentioned, I was looking for a ticket from my very first Dodger game in 1973. Which kind of leads me to what I'm going to show you guys tonight. Basically, I'm going to show you one of my latest pickups. And I'm going to show you these postcards I collected or I bought in the 70s, just to show them to you and see if your team had this item. And it's just a different, it's another world to go off into if you choose not to collect cards or if you choose to collect something in addition to cards. So let's turn the camera around, because you know me, I ramble too much. Let's turn the camera around and we'll take a look and I'll show you what I got. So I think we're ready. Before I show you my postcards, I picked up one card recently and I noticed this card a couple of months ago. I'm not a player collector, but I noticed that Sandy Koufax has a lot of cards that Topps produced after he retired. And I found this card from the 2020 Topps set that I found very unique. This is an SSP, what is that, super single print of Sandy Koufax. And I just found it extremely unique because it's the first time I've ever seen Sandy Koufax batting. And I'm stunned, one, that he's batting, because I'm so used to the DH. And two, I'm also stunned to learn he was a right-handed hitter. So in other words, he was exposing his left elbow to the pitcher. I should have looked up before I made this video how many times he was hit by a pitch. He might not have ever been hit by a pitch because the pitcher was probably afraid that he'd retaliate. But this is from the 2020 Topps set. It's like I said, a super single print. But I just thought this was a really unique card and I have to have it just to be different. Originally, the first cards I looked up, the sellers I looked at wanted $200. Or I'm not paying $200. Eventually, I found a seller who, I think I won this on an eBay bid for less than $40. So I'll do that. But yeah, that's a unique looking Sandy Koufax. So what I'm going to show you next, I'm curious to see if this happened at the ballparks you guys all grew up in. The Dodgers had this habit, especially in the 70s. I remember late 60s, throughout the 70s, early 80s, of releasing postcards. And they would change them throughout, I don't know, there's no checklists. I believe Morel Meats might have had some checklist or a checklist for like a 62 set that features 10 to 12 postcards. I also know there is a late 50s, or not a late 50s, a Brooklyn Dodgers, New York Yankees postcard set somewhere in the mid 50s, but it's only a few cards. The Dodgers had a habit of releasing a lot of postcards, like I said, primarily during the 70s. And I remember picking these up as a kid, and I had to buy some top loaders today for my LCS, and I thought I wanted to put my postcards in these. So I just want to show these off to you really quick. They're just a little unique, and we're going to see a lot of 70s and 80s and some 60s players here, but here's Ron Say, and I believe my Pirates friends, that might be Manny Sanguillen behind the plate, But this shows a unique view of Dodger Stadium because there are now luxury seats behind the plate. And back then they had these dugout seats. But that's Ron saying, like I say, I want to say that's Manny Sanguian in the background. Here's the postcard back. I never used these as postcards. I just always kept them. Next up is Steve Yeager, Dodger catcher throughout the 70s and early 80s. Look at that. They're playing the Expos. This scoreboard doesn't exist anymore at Dodger Stadium. This was called the auxiliary scoreboard behind first base, down the first baseline and the third baseline. These don't exist anymore. In fact, I believe there's now seats there. Dodger Stadium had a lot more foul territory back then. But here's a Steve Yeager postcard. I have two other Steve Yeager postcards just because the Dodgers tended to release several postcards per player. There is no checklist. I really wish there was because maybe I'd start a collection. So for now, I only have like 30, but I believe there's a couple of hundred or 150, including a really nice Frank Robinson from 1972 that I noticed. I don't have that, but I'll show you what I got so far. Here's Bert Hooton, Dodger pitcher from the 70s. Got him from the Cubs for Jeff Zahn and Eddie Solomon. Dodgers kept him for a good 10 years. Next up, Tommy Lasorda. I could tell this was taken at spring training, Vero Beach, Dodgertown. Vero Beach, Florida. The Dodgers were there up until about 10 or 15 years ago, and they finally moved to Arizona. Tommy Lasorda, the man who bled Dodger blue. That's his postcard. One of my favorite players, unfortunately, he had a major issue with substance abuse, and that was Steve Howe. And he, I felt, was one of the best relievers in the game. But his substance abuse got the best of him. Eventually suspended for the 84 season. And he got suspended several seasons after the Dodgers finally let him go. This, I believe, is taken from 1980 because of the patch the Dodgers wore back then. By the 80s, we start seeing a lot more of these poses as opposed to action shots. But here's Steve Howe. Another posed shot. This is Mike Scioscia, former Angels manager, but also viewed up as Fernando Valenzuela's catcher. In fact, for opening night, the Dodgers invited all their Cy Young Award winners, or not all of them, they invited some of their Cy Young Award winners, Clayton Kershaw, Fernando Valenzuela, Eric Gagne, Oral Hershiser. Did I say Koufax or Kershaw? All five of those guys were there, and Gagne and Hershiser and Fernando each threw out the ceremonial first pitch. And Dave Roberts caught Eric Gagne. And Hershiser was caught by Rick Dempsey. And Mike Scioscia came out to a thunderous ovation to catch Fernando Valenzuela. Mike wasn't participating in any of the Dodger functions when he managed the Angels. In fact, he would never come to any of the reunions with autographs just because that wasn't his style because he was with the Angels. So that's Mike Scioscia. Now, these are from the 60s, the late 60s. Here's Dodger first baseman Wes Parker. And you get to see what the left field pavilion looked like, the old Dodgers scoreboard, the palm trees in the back. Frank Howard once hit a ball into this orange section here. One of the longest home runs ever at Dodger Stadium at that point. That's Wes Parker, Gold Glove first baseman. Here's another guy. He made his claim to fame somewhere else. What'd they call him? Fool Pack? Don Stanhouse? He had a tendency of coming into a clean inning, walking three guys, so having bases loaded, nobody out, and then getting the next three guys out without giving up a run. And he was pretty damn good with the Orioles. I heard he gave Earl Weaver basically a heart attack. Eventually, he signed with the Dodgers as a free agent, and his luck ran out by the time he got here. I think he lasted maybe a season and a half, and Dodgers gave him some good money back then. But Don Stanhouse. Here's another one from the 60s. Bill Russell, longtime shortstop, eventually became the Dodger manager. He had these poses back then. I love this shot. The Union 76 was the one and only Dodger sponsor back then. Now the Dodgers have tons of advertising all over the place. Good shot here of Bill Russell. You know me, I love the stirrups. So These are nice, though. I'm curious to see if they make these for your team. One of my favorite Dodgers, Reggie Smith. This was later in his career. I bet you by this point, this is 1980 or 1981. I think he lost the mustache by this point. Great switch hitter. I wish he'd get more recognition, but played for the Red Sox, played for the Cardinals. Reggie Smith. All right. 70's. Steve Garvey holding down first base. They're playing the Houston Astros. Look at those uniforms they had back then. Wearing the commemorative patch for Don Wilson, the former Astros pitcher. Here's Steve Garvey holding down first base. The sunglasses that we don't see anymore, that you would flip down during a pop-up. And do players still wear wristbands? I think they might. I don't know. That's a good shot of Steve Garvey. Dodger utility player from the 70's, Rick Auerbach. If I'm reading this right, this looks to be like the California Angels, so I'm assuming this could be taken from the Freeway series, because that might be Ellie Rodriguez, the Angel catcher. Not sure, though. And I can't tell by looking at the scoreboard just because I could tell it says Dodgers on the bottom. But as I mentioned earlier, that scoreboard no longer exists. It's a great shot of Rick Auerbach, though, coming in to home plate. I was thinking about this guy the other day, Mike Marshall. I think they brought him up during a baseball game this week. In 1974, he pitched in 106 games as a relief pitcher, including 13 consecutive games. And in 1973, for the Montreal Expos, he pitched in 92 games. In 1974, he was phenomenal. I can't imagine anyone, today's standards, even when Mariano Rivera and Trevor Hoffman were around, I couldn't see them pitching in 13 consecutive games. Mike Marshall did. He went on to win the 1974 National League Cy Young Award. And unfortunately, that did kind of tend to mess up his career for a while. In 1975, he hurt his elbow. Dodgers let him go by 76. He resurfaced a couple of years later with the Minnesota Twins and had a couple of good years with them before he eventually called it quits. He was an interesting guy. I know that he was a really smart guy. He didn't sign autographs. Just an interesting character. I think he later got his PhD from Michigan State or something along those lines. Let's see. Jerry Royce, Dodger pitcher from the late 70s and early 80s. Got him on a trade from the Pirates that sent Rick Rhoden to the Pirates. Get to see the Dodger bullpen back then. Back then, the Dodgers all sat outside. Now they got a little bit more. They still do it on summer nights, but they also have a luxurious little shack right here where it's air conditioned where they can sit. But that's Jerry Royce. Let's see. Bob Welch. Look, they're playing the Giants when they had their orange uniforms. So that's in the late 70s. Bob Welch, he was an interesting guy. The one ball player I met that kind of scared me. He kept talking to me so much that I had to walk away. But he was a great pitcher. Rest in peace, Bob. 1988 or 1989 American League Cy Young Award winner. Bob Welch. Kenny Landreau started his career with the Angels. I think the Angels might have traded him to get Rod Carew from the Twins. Then after a couple of years, the Twins traded him to the Dodgers, and a trade sent Mickey Hatcher to Minnesota. And Ken Landreau played about 7 or 8 years. I got to meet him. I used to work at a video store, and he and his wife used to come in. Nice guy. I brought it up to him a few years ago. I met him at a reunion. And he goes, I remember that store. And I was pleasantly surprised he remembered going to that store back then. That's Ken Landreau. Fernando Valenzuela. He is having his number retired this season at Dodger Stadium. It's going to be pretty exciting. At this point, like I said, in the 80s, we were using just the portrait photographs. They got away from the action shots, but that's Fernando. You could see the 1980s patch the Dodgers wore back then. Pitch hit extraordinaire Manny Mota. This guy's still in the Dodger organization. He's been with us since like 1969. We got him from the Expos along with Maury Wills, and he never left. Pinch hitter. He was a coach. Still works with the team administratively. I met him, nicest human being you ever want to meet. And I told his son, Jose Mota, who is now the Dodgers Spanish announcer, what a great man his dad was. And he thanked me because this man just always has a smile on his face whenever you see him. So Manny Mota, pinch hitter. Is he the first free agent, Andy Messersmith, or is Dave McNally? Dave McNally, I think, retired. Andy Messersmith was with the Dodgers for 1973 through 75, and he's one of the first ever Major League Baseball free agents, or Catfish Hunter might have been the first free agent, I think. But here's Andy Messersmith. He had 3 good years with the Dodgers, went off with the Braves, didn't do much, came back with the Dodgers and didn't do much, but for a few years he was a very good ball player. Another great 70s player for the Dodgers, Tommy John, the inventor of the Tommy John surgery. I actually went to the baseball game that Tommy John injured his forearm, and he never pitched again. Or I shouldn't say he never pitched again. We didn't see him pitch again for 2 years. I was at that game. It was Little League night, Dodger Stadium, 1974. He was 13-3 at the time. He came back a great player for the Dodgers and went on to the Yankees and the Angels and the Yankees again. And he's just been a great pitcher. I think he might get into the Hall of Fame one day. We'll see. Dodger reliever, Terry Forster. We signed him from the Pittsburgh Pirates, who got him from the White Sox in 1978. Because of the bunting, this is either a postseason game or opening day. Dodger third baseman Ron Say in the background here. And the bat boy. This is what it was like to go to a Dodger game back then. Total flashback there. Forster played about 3 or 4 years and went on to the Atlanta Braves. And he's one of David Letterman's favorite players. I think he called them a big fat tub of goo, something like that. Terry got a little heavier after this photo, that's for sure. The man who saved the American flag, Rick Monday, still currently with the Dodgers as one of the radio announcers. Nice guy. I got to meet him once. Great player. Played with the Cubs, played with the A's, and played with the Dodgers. We got him in a trade for Bill Buckner in 1977. Or 76, I should say. Another player from the 70s and 80s, Joe Ferguson. Lately, I've been seeing a video pop up on YouTube. He had a home run against Vita Blue in 1974 during the World Series. Tommy Lasorda was the third base coach then and mic'd up. But here's Joe Ferguson. 2 more. Thanks for staying with me. I didn't realize I was going to show all these. Willie Crawford, outfielder during the mid to late 60s and into the 70s. And that's Willie Crawford. That looks like it was taken at Vero Beach. And my last one, another late 60s one, Hall of Famer Don Sutton. There's Dodger Stadium. If you come to Dodger Stadium now, the outfield looks completely different scoreboard. There's just a lot more action going on behind there, like a lot of the new stadiums. And but yeah, these are some postcards that I had bought when I was a kid, kept them over the years. There's no checklist. The Dodgers kept releasing 20 to 50 of them, it seemed like, every year for a while. I don't think they make them anymore. But let me know, did your team do this? Because these postcards are all over eBay for the Dodgers, but I don't know if they're available for other teams. But all right, if you stuck around this long, thanks so much. I didn't expect to be on so long, but have a wonderful weekend, and I hope to see you guys extremely soon. Take care.
It's a beautiful